A new coach is heading to College Station, and some very positive injury news for the Aggies ahead of their college football playoff matchup against Miami.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. I'm your host, Matt Galatzan of Texas A&M Aggies on SI. Welcome to Locked On Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Harrison Reno joining me today. And Harrison, we have a new coach in Aggie land. Obviously, the looming departure of Colin Klein and Jay Bateman was a big news deal. It appears both of them will be staying with the Aggies through the college football playoff. But they've already also found all of their replacements. They hired Holman Wiggins as the new offensive coordinator for next season. They hired or promoted again from within Lyle Hemphill to replace Jay Bateman. But one part they did not figure out was the linebacker coach position, because Jay Bateman was also the linebackers coach in addition to being the defensive coordinator. They have now found their linebackers coach. On Tuesday, it was announced that Travis Williams will be the new defensive coordinator, or the new linebackers coach for Texas A&M. This is according to Matt Zenitz of 24/7 Sports. And obviously, when you hear Arkansas in defense, it's not exactly ringing as a positive thing. But if you look at this guy's resume, he's a real solid coach.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing here is you look at his recruiting ties. You look at what he's done over the years, in the short time he was there at Arkansas. This is a guy that went into the state of Georgia and pulled out a top linebacker from the state. One of the, I believe it was a 4-star recruit, Tavian Wallace, who, Matt, this guy's now in the portal after his freshman season in Arkansas, looking to go elsewhere. So if you're looking, hint, for potential portal finds or potential portal targets over the coming weeks, maybe this is one of them now, after seeing what A&M has done with a portal linebacker over the last few years. But yeah, Travis Williams has experience here in the Southeast. Obviously was the defense coordinator at Arkansas for the last 3 seasons. Before that was at UCF and even was at Auburn. So this is a guy with SEC ties, specifically Southeastern ties. And Matt, I look at where he started. He was a high school coach down at Creekside High School who just played for a state championship in the state of Georgia last night. This is a guy that, again, get you some Southeastern recruiting ties. We talked about the tight end coach the other week in terms of some of the Florida ties he brings to the table. Now you got a guy that brings some Georgia ties to the table. And I think that's big in terms of, you look at the come up. Obviously, at Texas A&M, you're always going to recruit the state of Texas. It is one of, if not the best, high school talent pools in the country. But don't count out the state of Georgia, the state of Florida, 2 states that are rich with talent as well. And you look at some of the top players in college football over the last few years have come from those 2 states. You can go find a Caleb Downs in Georgia. You can go find a Jeremiah Smith down in Florida. And these caliber athletes, don't come around often, but when they do, you got to go get them. And Travis Williams, you're hopeful, is going to be able to bring that success over to Texas A&M. And I think beyond that, I know this isn't a real, huge, sexy coordinating hire. But this is just another guy, Matt, that's been a coordinator. He's done it for several years now, calling defenses. And that's an added resource on the staff that already has a lot of, cooks in the kitchen defensively. And if you have any questions, kind of like what A&M's defense, how it's going to change, how it's going to evolve over the next few years, I don't think you should be concerned, because you got a lot of defensive minds in there and a lot of guys that have experience and have done things their way. Obviously, at the end of the day, things are still going to be ran the way Mike Elko wants. But this is just an added mind, an added, set of experience in a room that, maybe allows Elko to help out a young offense coordinator a little bit more than maybe he previously would have, just because of him being so much more involved with the defense.
Yeah, and if you look at this guy's recruiting history, number one, you mentioned Tavian Wallace, who, very well could end up following him to Texas A&M. But you look at the amount of guys that he got when he was at Auburn. Owen Papo, I'm probably butchering that pronunciation. 5-star linebacker out of Loganville, Georgia. Matthew Hill, 4-star wide receiver out of Snellville, Georgia. T.D. Moultrie, inside linebacker out of Birmingham, Alabama. Wesley Steiner, inside linebacker out of Warren Robins, Georgia. Smoke Monday, athlete, Atlanta, Georgia.
Walking targeting penalty. Smoke Monday. That's a name right there. Walking targeting penalty.
Yeah. Bradley Shaw, who he got at Arkansas, was out of Hoover, Alabama. Valdosta, Georgia. Linebackers, Jacoby McLean to Auburn. Desmond Tisdall from Rochelle, Georgia. Michael Harris from Tucker, Georgia. Christian Tutt from Thomason, Georgia. I think you're starting to get the trend here. This guy recruits the state of Georgia very, very well. He recruits the state of Alabama very, very well. Texas A&M is now going to have another foothold in those areas to help bring them some talent from the most talent-rich states in the country outside of Texas. Especially Georgia is just absolutely loaded with Division I talent. But he has also done some very positive things as a coach. He was fired this past season as part of the Sam Pittman staff at Arkansas that was let go at the end of September. Bobby Petrino came in and just completely cleaned house on that defensive staff and let those guys go a little bit early. But his first season at Arkansas was a very, very good one. It was one of the best at the program in a decade. According to his bio for the Arkansas football website, Williams' first defense at Arkansas was statistically one of the program's best in a decade. The Hogs allowed just 357.2 yards per game, the lowest average per game since 2014 when the Arkansas defense allowed just 323.4 yards per game. The difference was nearly a full yard per play improvement in 2023 compared to the previous season. 5.67 yards per play in 2023 compared to 6.4 yards per play in 2022. And the 2023 squad also improved in nearly every defensive category from 2022, but made huge strides in pass defense specifically. They ranked fourth in the SEC against the pass, allowing just 202.8 yards per game, the best that they had seen since 2011 when they allowed just 195.2. They also had 12 interceptions that ranked third in the SEC, 4 pick sixes, which led all of the FBS. They were tied with 5 other teams for the lead in the FBS there. They also scored 5 total defensive touchdowns and gave up just 18.8 first downs per game, which was the fewest by an Arkansas defense since 2014. I mean, a lot of those numbers aren't astronomical, but to be able to make that much improvement from one year to the next really signifies his chops as a defensive coach. And now that he's not going to be tasked with calling an entire defense and he can just really focus in on those linebackers, I think there'll be some great improvement there. So really, really good hire by Texas A&M. He's only 42 years old, up-and-coming young coach that has a bright future in front of him and is an excellent recruiter. Before we head to the next segment, though, Harrison, let's
real quick, Matt. I wanted to shout this out because this was somebody I'm familiar with from his time before Arkansas. He had a certain 5-star transfer over there to Arkansas just the other year. Xavier Sorey Jr., who, to folks who follow recruiting, this was a former 5-star linebacker out of IMG, I believe. One of the most highly touted recruits coming out of high school in his cycle. Went to Georgia as a linebacker and didn't really play much. It was more of a reserve role. Granted, he played in a loaded linebacker room. You know, you had guys like N'Kobe Dean, Channing Tindall, Quay Walker, those guys in that room at the time. So he really never saw the field. Well, this guy transferred to Arkansas and played under Travis Williams for 2 seasons and turned into an all-SEC player. He was on the Buckus Award watch list in the preseason. I believe he was second team all-SEC last year. Was among the top of the conference in tackles as a whole last season. That's no, obviously the talent's always been there, just needed a place to go play and develop, and give props to him for, Travis Williams for overseeing that. Just something that kind of popped into my head that I remembered when talking about this guy's history.
Yeah, good shout there, Harrison. I was unaware of that one, so very good shout there. Before we move on to our next segment, let's hit some quick injury news. A big time update for Texas A&M today on Tuesday's practice. Le'Veon Moss, Scooby Williams, and Bryce Anderson were all seen padded and taking reps in Texas A&M's practice on Tuesday. Moss, Williams, and Anderson have all missed extended time after injuries. Moss has been out for quite some time. Anderson has been largely out since his injury against Notre Dame, and Scooby Williams has also been out for almost the same amount of time. Mike Elko addressed the media on Monday when he was asked about those players, and he said, "We'll see." And in the media portion of practice, all three were taking part. And in particular, Damian Sanford has done a great job in relief of Scooby Williams. Marcus Ratcliffe and Dalton Brooks have done a great job at safety in relief of Bryce Anderson. Texas A&M's running back group has been pretty good without Le'Veon Moss, but it has not been the same. And he is really the engine that drives that offense. So if you do get him back for this football game against a very tough Miami defense and a very tough defensive front in particular, that could go a long way in Texas A&M's chances, not just on Saturday, but going forward through the playoff.
Absolutely, and I think having Le'Veon Moss is the biggest thing, I think, of these names, especially offensively. It's the kind of the one missing piece right now. When you look at the offense and kind of where it was when Moss was healthy and was there compared to where it was, in the few games after that he kind of got hurt, you kind of saw a tad bit of a drop off in that room. And you want to see Moss obviously get back because that's one of your top weapons. And Marcel Reed's obviously a different quarterback when the run game's not there. And it's hard not to be. You have to have that crucial phase of the game, of the offense, and it made Texas A&M all the more better because you don't want to ask Marcel Reed to throw it 30 to 40 times a game because that's just not the way you're going to win. You have to be able to run the football, and you have to be able to do it well. I say efficiently, but efficiently could look like so many different things. Some offenses 3 yards per carry is efficient enough, but having Le'Veon Moss is instrumental to this postseason run the Aggies hope to make, and getting him back would be huge. And Matt, it's kind of right in line with the timeline that we were talking about weeks ago when it said, the timeline was unsure when he would be back exactly, but he will be back nonetheless. And this is where the little break, I think it's 3-week break from the end of the regular season to the start of the first round playoff games kind of is instrumental in getting these guys back. It's, 3 weeks otherwise that you wouldn't have gotten unless you're playing in a game. Now, obviously, maybe in these guys' cases, maybe you wanted a 4th week off and not to play in the first round game because then you have an extra added week of rest and recuperation. But any of these guys that come back and get to play for you, it's another perk of being in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Moss has been out since pretty early on in that Florida game back on October 11th. He had just 5 carries in that game, had 46 yards, averaging 9.2 yards per carry, and a score before going down in that football game. He was averaging 5.6 yards per carry and had 6 touchdowns on 70 carries, 389 yards through the first 6 games. He was really starting to pick up steam, I think, as well. He had 3 touchdowns against Notre Dame. He had 139 yards rushing and a touchdown against Auburn. It was a big loss for them, and their offense still performed very well throughout the season, but you could tell there was just like a little missing link, and that link was certainly Le'Veon Moss. So it would be huge for them to get him back ahead of that Miami game on Saturday. It looks like that's trending that way as well. So big time news there. All right, let's move on to our next segment. This Miami team is extremely talented. There's no two ways about it. They're one of the most talented teams, pound for pound, at least in the country. So we're going to give you our players to watch in that game, and a couple in particular who could make the biggest difference in whether or not the Aggies are able to win this thing on Saturday. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back. That's the wrong thing. The holidays are here, and whether you're hosting family planning, the perfect gift, or just trying to keep things simple and delicious, Omaha Steaks is making it easier than ever. From effortless holiday entertaining to unforgettable gifts, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience right to your door. And what makes it even better, with Omaha Steaks, you always know exactly what you're gifting. USDA certified tender steaks, premium proteins, gourmet sides, and decadent desserts that will make anyone feel appreciated. Who would you give Omaha Steaks to? I mean, I've sent them as gifts before to my grandparents, to my uncle, my aunts, some of my cousins, and all the reactions are always the same. This is the best gift ever. And I love how easy it is to gift. It shows up frozen, it's packed beautifully, it's ready to cook, and it's become one of my favorite, last minute gifts because it feels thoughtful without requiring any stress. Save big on gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com, and for an extra $35 off, use code COLLEGE at checkout. Terms apply. See for details. Wow. Now I'm hungry and I want some Omaha Steaks. All right, Harrison. So Miami, as we know, is one of the most talented teams in the country. There's a lot of NFL talent on that football team. You can go from top to bottom on both sides of the ball, and you will see guys who are playing on Sundays. The problem with Miami is that they've been a little bit inconsistent. They've kind of beat themselves a couple of times this year, notably against Louisville, and I think it was North Carolina State was their other loss.
SMU.
SMU, sorry. Yes, you're right. SMU. I feel like they beat themselves in both of those games.
Yeah, I had to go back and look at the game log because I wanted to go back and watch two of those games today, and I was like, man, I forgot about the SMU loss.
Yeah, well, we'll do that tomorrow ahead of our game or our podcast tomorrow, and kind of give you guys a rundown on that. But no two ways about it. Really, really talented team. So what we wanted to do is bring you a couple of players from each side of the ball that we think that you as Aggie fans need to be on the lookout for, who could be the impact players that could make a difference for Miami in this football game, and who Texas A&M really needs to game plan for, because they are game wreckers each in their own way. I think that the first one, and this is going to be an easy one, Harrison, is Malachi Toney. Freshman wide receiver, has been absolutely unbelievable for them all year long. He's their biggest playmaker offensively. He does it all. He catches the ball. He runs the ball. He's even thrown a couple passes. He's one of those. He's almost Casey Concepcion. I don't want to give him that kind of credit yet because he's just a freshman, but he has the same kind of versatility. I mean, he's had 84 catches, 970 yards, 7 scores, 17 carries, 89 yards and a score, and he's thrown 2 passing touchdowns. He does it all. So if you're going to stop this Miami offense, it really feels like it starts with him.
And I've seen some people, these are draft evaluators, non-draft evaluators, just other regular media, kind of like you and I, call him the best underclassmen receiver, non-Jeremiah Smith. Like, that's how good of a season he's having. I turned on some Miami tape today, and there's a couple snaps of him lining up in the backfield. Kind of, they call it the Deebo Samuel package, although I don't know if it was Deebo Samuel was the first receiver ever to line up at a running back spot. Not sure, but we call it the Deebo Samuel package nonetheless. Moving him around, trying to create touches for him. Mark of a good, most simplest way to explain football on offense. Get the ball to your best playmakers. To wonder why Chip Kelly couldn't do in Las Vegas, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, Malachi Toney. I'm curious to see what he looks like versus A&M. I'm curious to see how they handle it from a defensive staff standpoint. Like, this is a guy that is going to keep you up at night because Miami tries all different ways to get him the ball and to get him some quick, easy touches. They did in that SMU game. They ended up losing. And you can bet, 9 times out of 10, key third down, key down of the football game, where's Carson Beck going to open up first? It's going to be the Malachi Toney side of the field. So if you see a number 10 on the field and he's on a certain side, you can bet number 11 back there at quarterback is going to be opening up towards him first to see where he's at before progressing to his other reads. The guy for me, Matt, and maybe this isn't a guy you need a game plan on stopping. It's just kind of a key to the game for me in terms of Miami. Like, this guy has to get rolling. It's Mark Fletcher at running back. Mm-hmm. They have been bad in the run game this year. They have not been good. They've been below average, I would say, for what Miami expects when they have an offensive line that has, I believe, probably a first-round tackle and a couple other Sunday players in their front five. They are 77th in the nation in rushing offense so far. They're averaging 149 or 150 per game. They are not very good up front in the run game. They haven't been able to get it going. I really, really like Fletcher too. I think Fletcher's a good back. He kind of iced that Notre Dame game for him at times. Really found some yardage, tough hitting yardage in that game. And if this guy gets rolling, we talked about it with the Texas game leading up. Texas has been a bad rushing offense all year long. They were 101st. They're 101st right now, and they found a way to run the ball versus the Aggies, which I couldn't come on here in good confidence and not at least highlight that because there is some similarities there in terms of A&M, a run defense that hasn't been elite by any means, hasn't been terrible, but has had some bad moments coming up against an offense that hasn't had very many good running games to the point in this year.
Yeah, absolutely. The way to beat this Texas A&M football team is to run the football. So if they're going to find a way to win, Mark Fletcher has to be a big part of it. There's no two ways about that. Before we move on to the defensive side of the ball, Harrison, I want to give a quick shout out to our listeners. Thank you for making Locked On Aggies your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Aggies with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more. All for just $5 a month and $50 a year. Go to lockedonaggies.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. And if you're a true diehard Aggies fan, the Everydayer All Access tier is built for you. You get one-on-one text access with me, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and 15% discount on the Locked On merch store. Head to lockedonaggies.supercast.com to join the Everydayer Club and unlock all access. You can find the link in the show notes. Let's move on to the defense, Harrison. I think that the name that everybody knows about, that is one of the biggest game wreckers in college football, and he's an AP All-American, or he's an All-American. I can't remember which. There's like 3 All-American teams that have been released already. He was one of them. Reuben Bain, the defensive end for the Hurricanes. He's big, he's powerful. He's got 4.5 sacks. And that number might not jump off the page, but he's probably been involved in disrupting about 20 other ones. He's one of the biggest problems along the defensive front in college football, and he's got 7.5 tackles for loss. He's also got an interception on the year, and he's the ACC's Defensive Player of the Year. So it really all starts with him up front.
It does, and this is the game wrecker on both sides of the ball. Like, this is the biggest game wrecker on both sides of the ball for Miami. Much like Sketchy Howell is the biggest game wrecker, you could argue, for Texas A&M. Like, when this guy's rolling, when this guy's hot, when this guy's getting after the quarterback, good luck. Miami is a team that's going to, win with its defense. They have a good offense. They aren't great. They're not well balanced, obviously, as we talked about in that prior segment. But defensively, there's not many holes. They're pretty good versus the run. They're really good versus the pass because they have 2 guys that can get after the passer, and Reuben Bain's one of them. Matt, I want to see this guy in a Dallas Cowboys uniform at some point. I don't know if it's going to happen. But this was a guy, you remember watching the Notre Dame game, and Notre Dame just kind of got annihilated up front. And it was Reuben Bain for a big part of it that was getting after and being an absolute menace in this game. I can't wait to watch how this matchup in terms of Reuben Bain going up against Trey Zune, going up against this Texas A&M offensive line, because you can imagine typically if it's just one guy, you're going to shift your protections and you're going to count for him. But what if it's 2? What do you do then? And it's a perfect segue for the other guy to watch, because they got 2 of these guys. They got Akeem Mezador, who, shocking to me, Matt, has more sacks, is the Hurricanes' leading sack guy. And I don't know if he's going to be the highest drafted of the 2. I assume Reuben Bain will be. But Mezador has, I believe, 7 sacks on the season to this point. This guy has 46 total tackles. According to PFF, he has 44 pressures. Reuben Bain has 58. Like, the game for these guys on the defensive front starts right there with those 2 edge rushers. And I'm curious. I know, at least in the Notre Dame game and a couple of those games I saw them early in the year, They don't always keep both of them on the field for all 3 downs. Sometimes they rotate. Sometimes they bring them on later as you get into passing situations. So, I mean, if that's still the case and Miami's still rotating them quite, often, then maybe the key for that is, hey, maybe go hurry up. Maybe don't allow them to sub. But make no two ways about it. When these guys are on the field, and they're going to be on the field a ton, A&M's offensive line is going to have its hands full.
Yeah, one other player I want to mention really quickly on the defensive side of the ball as well, Keontae Scott, the nickelback number 0. He primarily lines up in the slot and will probably spend most of his night there on Mario Craver or Casey Concepcion. But he's not just a shutdown guy. He's a physical tackler. He's got an interception. He's got 5 passes defended, but he's also got 44 tackles, 3 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble out of that nickel spot. Another game record there for the Hurricanes defensively. Just some other guys to keep your eye on. Obviously, Carson Beck, one of the most talented passers in the country, 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, over 3,000 yards passing. Keelan Marion, wide receiver, 557 yards and a score. C.J. Daniels, 391 yards and 7 touchdowns as a receiver. We already talked about Mark Fletcher. They also have Gerald Pringle, 58 carries, averaging 6.2 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. You want to talk about an offensive lineman to watch out for, Francis Moaga. I'm probably butchering that one too. He's listed as one of the top tackles in the NFL draft. You alluded to him earlier. Likely going to be a first-round pick, in a fantastic matchup against Cassius Howell, more than likely, is going to ensue there. So that'll be maybe my favorite matchup to watch out of this entire game, is those two going at it. Maybe Trey Zune and Reuben Bain would be a really good one too. I think there's going to be a lot of good matchups in that in the trenches, which could be one of the keys to the game that we have coming up next. And in our next segment, we are going to tell you how Texas A&M exactly will win this football game on Saturday. So stick with us after this break, and we'll be right back. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when, it comes to snagging the seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands. It makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through matchups and compare seat views. And then you just pick a game, tap a section, and you have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. So take the guesswork out of buying those World Cup tickets. In every match, every concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off on your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Game Time. All right, Harrison, here we go. Texas A&M wins this game if. I think there's a couple of different things you could talk about here. I think we should each just give one, because we're running a little bit short on time here. So we're each just going to give you our biggest key to the game here. I'm going to go first since I'm the host, and this is the one that I've thought about the most since Texas A&M got this matchup when the bracket was finalized. You have to win in the trenches on both sides of the ball. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but when you got an offensive line like the talent that Miami has, going alongside the myriad of talent they have on that defensive line with Bain and all the other guys we talked about in the last segment, not to mention guys like Ahmad Moten Sr. There's so much talent on both sides of that. And if you don't win the line of scrimmage and you don't keep Marcel Reed upright on one side of the ball, get a push in the running game on the offensive side of the ball, and you don't get after Carson Beck on the other side and kind of get him off of his spot, make him uncomfortable, he's going to pick you apart. If they run the ball on you, they're going to pick you apart. So that is it for me, Harrison. If Texas A&M wins this game, it is going to be because they won on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and I think obviously that essentially comes down to which defensive front is more disruptive. at the end of the day. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, is Reuben Bain and Akeem Mezador getting after Marcel Reed in that Texas A&M offense, or is it Cassius Howell in A&M's front seven that's winning this ball game? And I like how you put it, because it's not only just the run game, like we talked about Miami struggling to run the football consistently, but it's also very much so getting after Carson Beck. Matt, this is a guy that's been pressured on just 14.7% of his dropbacks. That's insane. That's a really low rate. He's only been sacked 9 times, and I think only 2 of those games where he was sacked more than once. So this is a quarterback that has not been under pressure much. And as we saw last year, where he was under pressure, he was under fire constantly, it got him into trouble. Was one of the worst graded quarterbacks under pressure in college football last year, was way below average. And he's still below average this year when under pressure. Granted, a lot less dropbacks under pressure because Miami's offensive line has been much better. But to me, it's, the line of scrimmage is absolutely going to be a big part of this game. But Matt, I wouldn't be doing my service to this show if I didn't bring this up. The third phase of the game, special teams, baby. Won and lost in these moments. How many games have we seen in the playoffs? Heck, even in conference championship weekend, where special teams loses a team of the game, and A&M's been a little shaky in the kicking game. Gonna have to shore that up. Jared Zirkle, you're gonna have to be the guy. You're gonna have to hit some kicks. But in the return game, for sure, I will never forget it. Notre Dame beat Georgia because they won the middle eight, and the middle eight included a kickoff return for the touchdown right out of the gate, right after halftime. Like, it's just those little plays, which, granted, it's a kick return for a touchdown, not a little play, but it's just those things. So many of these games comes down to which special teams is putting their team in the best position to win. And Matt, I know we don't do predictions till Wednesday, but this game's already shaping up to me like an offensive struggle because of both defenses on both sides. I don't think this game gets into the 40s. I don't think it really gets into the 30s. I think this is a 24-21 one possession football game where you don't score more than 10 points in a quarter combined. So, if that's the case, field position is going to be all the more important. And maybe when we come back and look at this, we'll come back and say, hey, A&M scored 24 points. They won the game, but they didn't have to drive the whole length of the field because, thanks to their defense, had them in good field position, or thanks to a great return from Concepcion. This game, to me, just has all the makings of a low-scoring, competitive football game that is decided by the slimmest of margins. And if A&M can figure out whatever the heck they need to figure out in the kicking game, then I do believe, they win this game. Because I think, to me, Matt, that's the one thing that when I think about this game, it's one of those things where it's like, man, how does A&M lose this game? Oh, man, I can see a missed kick because it's been there all year long. I mean, it almost doomed over South Carolina. So that's kind of, it's in my mind. I know I hate to be that guy, but I'm going to be that guy this week.
It's a fantastic point because they've been flip-flopping between Randy Bond and Zirkle, and neither of them have seemed very consistent whatsoever throughout the season. And Miami has the opposite problem. Carter Davis has made 41 of 41 extra point attempts, and he's 14 of 16 on field goals. His only misses have come between 40 and 49 yards. He's hit a 50-plus yarder. He's 100% from 39 yards and in. So that's, I think you're 100% right. This is a game that 24-21 might even be too much. This could be, Auburn versus Texas A&M earlier in the year where it's 16-10 or 17-13 or something like that. This is two heavyweight defenses going back and forth with each other, and the kicking game and the special teams game could very well decide it. So I think that's a great shot there, Harrison. But that's going to do it for another episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Aggies. When we come back tomorrow, we are going to talk about the Aggies CFP ceiling, a statistical comparison between the two teams, and then we're going to also make our picks of the week. We got a lot of catching up to do there, Harrison. I got to retally our scores here and see who's on top after conference championship weekend. But make sure to subscribe and follow the podcast so you get all the latest episodes. You can find us on X at Locked On Aggies. We're on TikTok at Locked On Aggies as well. You can find me on X at Matt Galatzan. You can find Harrison on X at Harrison Reno. And if you need a last-minute holiday gift or someone keeps asking you what you want, make it easy. Ask for the Everydayer Club. Ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. Subscriptions can be gifted through the custom link in our description. And for those of you who are on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On College Football, and we'll see you next time. How about that Diego Pavia Heisman reaction, Harrison?